The silence after. I never thought silence could be so terrifying until it became the only thing left in the world. The day everything changed started like any other Tuesday. I was running late for work, cursing under my breath as I fumbled with my coffee thermos. My phone buzzed with a weather alert, something about unusual atmospheric disturbances. I ignored it like everyone else did. We were all too busy living our normal lives to notice the signs. It was during my morning commute when I first noticed something was wrong. The radio kept cutting out, not just switching to static, but to complete silence. Then my phone died. Not the usual dead battery, but something else. 1 second I was scrolling through emails. The next, it was just a black rectangle of glass in my hand. When I looked up, every car on the highway had stopped. No one panic-braked, no horns blared. Every vehicle just coasted to a gentle stop, as if they'd all run out of gas at the exact same moment. I remember thinking it was beautiful, in a strange way. All those cars perfectly still on the asphalt, silent under the morning sun. I got out like everyone else, looking around in confusion. A woman in a business suit stood next to her BMW, repeatedly pressing her key fob with increasing frustration. An older man was hunched over the engine of his pickup truck. A teenager kept slapping his phone against his palm as if that would bring it back to life. "What's happening?" someone asked, their voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. No one had an answer. Not yet. We all assumed it was temporary, some kind of massive power surge or EMP. The word solar flare was whispered among the crowd. We thought it would pass. Systems would reboot. Life would go on. I remember looking up at the sky. It was a perfect blue, not a cloud in sight. But something about it felt wrong. The color seemed too saturated, like someone had turned up the contrast on reality. And there was this low humming sound. So quiet you'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. Like the sound of power lines, but coming from everywhere at once. I decided to walk home. It was only about 5 miles, and something told me this wasn't going to be resolved quickly. As I walked along the shoulder of the highway, I wasn't alone. Hundreds of others had made the same decision, creating a strange pilgrimage of confused commuters. The city looked different as we approached it on foot. Without the constant background noise of traffic and machinery, buildings seemed to loom larger. Glass towers reflected the too bright sun in ways that hurt my eyes, and there were birds, so many birds, flying in patterns I'd never seen before, making sounds I'd never heard. It took me 3 hours to get home. By then, rumors were spreading faster than any electronic signal could have. Someone claimed it was a Chinese cyber attack. Others said it was terrorists. A man with wild eyes stood on a street corner shouting about the rapture. My apartment building was eerily quiet when I arrived. No elevator, of course. I climbed the 6 flights of stairs in darkness, guided by the emergency lights that still glowed dimly. Mrs. Petrovich from 6B was sitting on the landing, crying softly. Her insulin was in the refrigerator, she explained, and without power, it would spoil. I promised to check on her later, knowing even then it was a promise I might not be able to keep. My apartment felt like a stranger's place. Without the hum of the refrigerator or the digital clock's glow, it was just a box of useless objects. I tried the faucet, still working, thankfully, and filled every container I could find. Some deep instinct told me to prepare. Night fell, and the city went dark in a way I'd never experienced. No streetlights, no headlights, no soft blue glow of screens from neighboring apartments. Just darkness, broken only by a few flickering candles in distant windows and the impossibly bright stars above. That first night, I slept with my door barricaded, a kitchen knife under my pillow. The silence was absolute. No sirens, no distant traffic, not even voices. It was as if the world had been wrapped in cotton. I woke to screaming. It was coming from several floors below, raw, primal fear given voice. I pressed my ear to the floor but couldn't make out words, just the animal sound of human terror. Then it stopped, cut off mid-scream. The silence that followed was somehow worse. 3 days passed. No power returned. No phones came back to life. No authorities arrived to explain or reassure. I rationed my food and water, venturing out only to check on Mrs. Petrovich. On the second day, she wasn't answering her door. On the third day, I used a hammer to break in. The smell told me what I would find before I saw her. I buried her in the small garden behind our building. It seemed like the right thing to do. While digging, I noticed the grass had taken on a strange silvery tint, and the soil felt wrong between my fingers, gritty, almost metallic. By the end of the first week, small groups were forming. Safety in numbers, people said. I joined a group of 12 from my neighborhood. We pooled our resources and set up a base in the local elementary school gymnasium. Jackson, a former military guy, took charge naturally. Maya, who had been a nurse, handled medical concerns. I volunteered to join scavenging parties. My size and speed made me useful for getting in and out of tight spaces. It was during a scavenging run that I first saw one of them. We were picking through an abandoned Costco, our flashlights creating narrow tunnels of visibility in the cavernous space. The air was thick with the smell of rotting food from the deli section. I was crawling under a collapsed shelving unit, reaching for a fallen box of batteries, when my light caught something moving between the aisles. At first, I thought it was another scavenger, but the movement was wrong, too fluid, too purposeful. I froze, watching as it emerged into a patch of daylight coming through a broken skylight. It looked human, mostly. Right height, right general shape, but something about the proportions was subtly wrong. Arms too long, neck too flexible, and its skin, God, its skin, had that same silvery sheen I'd noticed on the grass. It was naked, or seemed to be, though its body lacked certain anatomical details you'd expect. No nipples, no navel, no genitals, just smooth, reflective skin stretched over a too thin frame. Its face was the worst part, almost human, but with eyes too large and too dark, a mouth too wide, frozen in what might have been an attempt at a smile. It hadn't seen me yet. It was examining something on the floor, the body of another scavenger, I realized with horror. Not from my group. Someone else who had the same idea we did. The creature was crouched over the corpse, running its two long fingers through the dead person's hair with what looked like curiosity. I backed away as quietly as I could, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure it would hear. When I was far enough away, I turned and ran, finding the others and urgently whispering that we needed to leave. Now, Jackson wanted details. I couldn't bring myself to describe what I'd seen. Something's in there, was all I could manage. Something bad. We left with our meager findings, and I spent that night staring at the ceiling of the gymnasium, listening to the breathing of 11 other humans, and wondering if we were the last normal people left. The next day, Maya didn't wake up. Her skin had a faint silver sheen. We moved locations after that, abandoning the school for a more defensible apartment building. More people joined us, survivors with their own stories of strange encounters. A woman named Claire described seeing her husband's body being dragged away by something that looked like him, but wasn't. An old man told us his dog had turned silver before dissolving into a puddle of mercury-like liquid. 2 weeks in, we realized the air was changing. It carried a metallic taste, and after rain, puddles would shimmer with an oily film that reflected rainbow colors. Plants were changing too, growing in strange geometric patterns and taking on that same silver sheen. 1 month after the silence fell, we understood this wasn't temporary. This wasn't something we would recover from. This was transformation. They began to appear more frequently. Always at a distance at first, watching us from rooftops or through windows. Always silent. Always with those too wide smiles. We learned they were strongest at night and seemed to avoid fire. We kept torches burning at all times. Our group grew, then shrank. New people would arrive with tales of other survivors. Then someone would go missing, or worse, would wake up changed. We established rules. No one sleeps alone. No one goes out alone. If someone's skin changes, they're exiled immediately. I broke that last rule when it happened to Ellie. She was just 12, had joined us with her older brother after their parents vanished. When I noticed the silver trace along her hairline, I couldn't bring myself to send her away. I hid her, brought her food, told the others she had run off. For 3 days, I watched her transformation. Her eyes grew larger, her limbs elongated, her voice became softer until it faded completely. On the third night, she smiled at me, that horrible too-wide smile, and I knew Ellie was gone. Whatever wore her shape now wasn't her anymore. I should have killed it. I didn't. I let it go, watched it slip away into the night to join the others. Sometimes I think I see her watching me from rooftops. That was 2 months ago. Our group is down to 5 now. We've learned to survive in this new world, but not to live in it. The air continues to change, becoming thinner, carrying sounds differently. Sometimes I hear what might be voices speaking words that almost make sense, like English filtered through a broken translator. The sky has taken on a perpetual sunset hue, even at midday. Last week, we found an old ham radio in the basement of an electronics store. Jackson has been trying to reach other survivors, broadcasting on all frequencies. Yesterday, we received our first response, a crackled transmission that repeated the same phrase, "They are not replacing us, they are preparing us." We don't know what it means. We're afraid to find out. This morning, I noticed a silvery patch on my forearm. I haven't told the others. I don't know if I will. Part of me is terrified. Part of me is curious. What will it feel like to become one of them? Will my consciousness continue in some form? Will I understand then what this silence has been leading to all along? The world is changing. We are changing with it. All I know for certain is that we weren't the first intelligent life on this planet, and it seems we won't be the last. As I write this, I can see one of them watching me from a building across the street. Its head is tilted at an impossible angle, that familiar smile stretched across its face. I think it might be Ellie. I think it's waiting for me, and in the silence, I almost hear it calling my name.
Every story has an end, but there's always another waiting to be told. Subscribe to Steve's Stories for more sci-fi, dystopian, and war-driven adventures, from short tales to full novels. Like the video, hit the bell, and join me on this journey through worlds unknown.